In this video, I'll be sharing with you a tutorial on how to cut this stylish asymmetric Victorian corset with front lacing bar. This corset is from Marian Stitches. So are you still having issues with drafting out your corset, or you're a beginner and you don't know how to cut out your corset pattern? Join us in this 5 days corset class where I'll be teaching you how to draft 5 different types of corsets. The class is going for 5,000 naira, but for early birds you're going to pay 3,500. So without much wasting time, let's dive right into today's video. So to start, I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline, and I added 5 inches to get my blouse length, which is about 2 inches above hip point. After marking that, mark your shoulder divided by 2, and from there come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope. Next, you're going to find your chest line, which I've already marked, and to get that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5. Mine is 7 and I drew out a straight line at that point. So I'll mark back what I have on the shoulder on my chest line and I'll connect it to the upper part. Now I'll divide this into 2 and mark. I'll be coming out by ½ inch here. And at this point, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now connect from the upper part to that ½ inch at the armhole and to your bust circumference divided by 4. So after I'm done marking this now, I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline this. After I'm done outlining, next is to start imputing my measurements. And I will start with marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2 because I want to mark my dart. My nipple to nipple 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. I marked this all the way down to the lower part of my pattern. So I'll go ahead to mark a dart intake of 1 inch on both sides, and I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides of my pattern, and I'll also go ahead to extend it to the lower part. After I'm done marking this, I'm going to go ahead to draw out a straight line and also connect at the other side of my pattern this way. So after I'm done cutting this out, I'll go ahead to use my marker to rule out a straight line. So the next step I'm going to take now is to go ahead to connect from my bust down to my under bust this way. And I'll also repeat this at the other side of my pattern. After I'm done marking this out, I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline this. Now I'll go ahead to mark a basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches for this pattern. This will serve as a guide because I want to divide the rest of my shoulder into 2, and I'll mark. From that midpoint, I'll place my ruler and I'll draw a straight line. Now I'll be marking a dart intake of 2 inches. From here, I will extend it to my bust line. After I'm done extending this, I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline this all the way to the lower part. After I'm done extending this, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to start inserting my measurement. My bust is 33, divided by 4, I have 8.3. So now, the dart intake I will take is this one on the chest line. I'm going to leave this part because the dart we have there is supposed to contour or make the upper part of our symmetric corset relax. So I'll go ahead and add ½ inch for this pattern. At the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. Replace the dart intake also and add ½ inch for this pattern. Now I'm going to snatch my waist directly. My waist is 28. I'm taking out 2 inches from it. If I divide it, I'll have 6.5 inches, and I'll replace the dart intake of 2 inches I took out and then add ½ inch for my sewing allowance. For the lower part, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4, replace the dart intake of 2 inches and add ½ inch for my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to connect this from the upper part to the lower part of my pattern this way. And after I'm done connecting, I'll use my marker to outline. The next step is to work on the lower part of your pattern. I'll go ahead and mark 2 inches from here, and I'll go ahead to connect. So there's like a slight basque, and here you have to make sure that your pattern blends in to get to the other side. And I'll redraw this side and add like a little basque effect to this pattern. Now I'll just go ahead and use my marker to outline my pattern. Whenever I'm making a dress in form of a tube, I like adding half inch at the upper part, so I'll just go ahead and add that and connect it back to my armhole area. Next step is to go ahead and mark my bust dart. And to mark your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist at the front and your shoulder to waist at the back. And I'll go ahead to connect this. After I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead to shade out. My shoulder to waist in front is 17. My shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5 inches. So if you take out 15.5 inches from 17, what you have is 1.5 or 1.5 rather. So that is how to get your bust dart. So next, I'll go ahead to determine where I want the asymmetric neckline to start. So I want to go up by 4 inches after my chest line, and I'll mark. So after this, I'll go ahead to use my pencil to sketch out what I want. And if I'm okay with that, I'll go ahead and outline it very well. But if I look at it and I'm not okay with it, I'll go ahead to readjust it. So I'm okay with what I have here, and I will use my marker to outline. After outlining, I'll go ahead to shade out my dart so that you notice that I have a dart at that point. Since I've snatched out my waistline already, all I'll do is to add a style line to my pattern. Give it a Victorian corset cut, because for a Victorian corset, you need to have multiple dart or style lines on your pattern. So I went ahead to label my patterns out. Now I marked half inch in front because there's a lacing at the front part. So after marking that half inch, I went ahead to reconnect the upper part. Now this lacing, I'm going to mark it all the way to the lower part. So if you're making this pattern, actually you're going to add like a modesty panel behind your pattern. That is the main pattern of this dress, so that your bust area or your body will not be showing. Now after this, I'll go ahead to make a dot to indicate that I have a lacing at this part of my pattern. And after that, I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern. So if you have any question regarding this pattern drafting or illustration, please don't forget to go ahead to leave your question at the comment section. And also, if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please follow me at Draft with Maki and Maki's Closets. So for the back pattern, this is what I have. And for my back pattern, I want it to be a basic and simple pattern. I'll be cutting it in form of a dartless pattern. So now my shoulder to waist at the back, sorry, is 15.5, and I added back that 5 inches for the length, just like we did. So what I will do now is to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add half inch. So that waistline that we used for the front, that is the same waistline you are going to use for the back. At the lower part, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4 and add half inch to it. After this, I'll just go ahead to connect this all the way to the lower part of my pattern and go ahead to use my marker to outline. And after I'm done outlining, I'll go up by 2 inches, just like we also did for the front part. Now you can choose any style line you want at this pattern, and I'll go ahead to connect. And after I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead to come down by half inch, go up by half inch at the chest line, because I did that for the front pattern. Why I went down by the center part of this pattern or towards the zipper is because I don't want the lacing area to pop up. So now I'll be marking my lacing area. So you can use 2 inches, 1.5. It totally depends on how open you want your back to be. Mark this to the lower part, connect, and that's going to be your lacing area for this corset pattern. So after this, I'll go ahead to cut it out. And with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and see you in our next video. Thanks.